Today is the first episode of 2023, and I have Tanis Coughlin with me today. I'm your host, Ramsey Chiri. I'm a psychic medium, and Tanis has a couple of paragraphs of the titles.
I do stuff.
Go ahead, Tanis.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. And I am a Reiki master, Celtic shamanic high priestess, crystal master, a channel, galactic ambassador. Yeah, I do a few things. Card reader. We do stuff, and I share Ramsey's mediumship stuff. Although he's stronger medium, I think. It's pretty awesome. He's pretty awesome.
We're all good. Thank you. So welcome to 2023. So it started 2023 with technical difficulties.
Yes, it did.
We were late. Okay, by 1 minute it wasn't bad, but audio system wasn't working and video system was off a bit, and now we got it running. So hopefully the whole episode will be streamed well. So we thought starting the year, we start with 365 of opportunities. So it's the first day of the year. Well, no, it wasn't the first day, but it's
Are you going to count?
No.
You're the numbers guy.
By the way, I'm a director of finance also. That's what I do during the day. And I put my cape in the evening. So
I'm the people person. I'm the HR girl.
we worked well together, finance and HR.
That's right. We have to work together in those two areas.
So how do we prepare for the year? I know, Tanis, you had at the school the vision board.
Yeah, we had a vision board class. And, coming up, we're going to be doing a lot more other new stuff that's coming in this year. We have Aqua Lead 1 coming up. We've got some Reiki already scheduled. I'm working on bringing some more classes in. We're working on a series called Know Thyself, which is going to be pretty cool. It's with Jen and Jacqueline and I. And it's going to be all about getting to know who you are, which is the healing journey, right? So that's another thing that's coming up. And we're also looking at, we've got the membership site up and running now. So that's already ready. We're getting lots of content there from our teachers and stuff. And what else have we got going on this year? We've got, lots of podcasts happening. So you and I do this one every second Friday. Jen and I do Twillo Talk on Monday. And Michelle and I do readings on Wednesdays. So, we got lots going on. I've also started one called Bridge to the Galaxy with the Alliance. So stay tuned for that one as well. What else is happening? I checked in to my guides for the new year, if we're going to talk about New Year stuff, and I got 3 words. The 3 C's. These are the focuses for this year for us to make it through the year, well adjusted. So the first one is caring. So making sure that we're caring for ourselves and caring for each other. The second one is collaboration. So working together. None of this sort of backbiting stuff of competition. Competition is that's not what's in the cards this year. It's all about collaboration. And then the third one is compassion. And that's not just for others, also for self. So we have to do a fair bit of self. There's a lot of healing stuff coming up for everybody. It's been lots of energy. I think the Schumann resonance has been off the charts in the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And so that affects our vibration as well. So is that what you were looking for?
Actually, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Just say hi to Betsy. I think Shem is this.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, ladies.
So if you've heard, there's a lot of things that are happening at the Academy, and also it doesn't happen overnight. It's been happening over uh, over a year.
Hmm.
I don't know exactly when, but it's over a year, and slowly things started to build up. And what we do usually, we get to the end of the year, we go, oh my God, let's do everything that is wrong, and then as of January 1st, you know, the subscription to the gyms will go up.
Yes.
Attendance actually goes up also in January. Attendance disappears in February. We'll put a plan in place in January and we'll forget about it within 4 to 6 weeks. We put other stuff and then we just let them go. And all these opportunities that we sit and create within a couple of weeks or a couple of days period, kind of like they look really cool. We put them on a piece of paper, we hang them on the wall, we look at them, we light candles, we do all kinds of rituals around that. And then a couple of days later or a week or so, we start to go back to our regular habits, the 9 to 5, the whatever it is that we do, and then we forget about everything. So I thought what we will try to talk about today is how to solidify opportunities.
Hmm.
Because opportunities are there. Are there everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's there. It's even in the darkest of darkest nights, there are opportunities in there. And there are a lot of them actually. But what we tend to do is we tend to kind of lose sight because we're too focused on what should happen
And
rather
there's that
than
word again,
yes,
should.
what should happen. And we forget actually we miss those opportunities that are sprouting everywhere, like really everywhere. So yes, it's good that you mentioned all these things that are happening at the academy because these things didn't just happen yesterday. They didn't start on January 1st with the vision board. They started on January 1st with the vision board a year ago,
Hmm.
and they started with the vision maybe a couple of years before that, and slowly we build. It's a matter of habits because that's what we are. We're creatures of habits, and
I'm
we
not sure I am.
right.
Depends on the human design of what you have, right? Like I think that some people are very habitual. They need routine. They need everything to be the same.
Yeah,
And other people's no. Other people are like, no, I don't really want to do everything the same all the time. Like I'm much more like not very good at routine, although I tend to fall into it, I think. So I think in that sense you're right, but I don't really like routine.
that's exactly how you built it up. You
Yes.
built it up by breaking certain things and focusing on one.
Hmm.
Uh, I think the hello friends is Estella. How are you doing, Estella? It's been a long
Hi,
time.
Estella.
We haven't done a gathering all together. So yes, it's breaking certain habits or moving away from the norm
Hmm.
into a more focused, more direct vision.
Yeah. And I think it's the big vision that's important. I think that we can do some planning and stuff around that. We can, and vision boarding is part of that planning, but the details of how things are going to happen.
Yeah,
um, I believe we have to be flexible with that and adaptable, because that word should, like you mentioned earlier, the word should, it's a dangerous word. We think things should be a certain way, and that's like expectation that we put on it, and spirit doesn't work that way, right? they their should might be very different from our should, but they both get us to the same place, right? So
totally.
we might have a goal in mind, and if we follow our should, we're like going like this to get to the goal, right?
Yeah,
Where if we follow spirit and we follow the flow, it's more like this,
yeah,
right? It's a lot more direct if we are in flow. So the should word is I struggle with that word a little bit, only because, or I caution that word, because you want to make sure that you're not putting expectation on yourself or on the process. What have we got here? How do you stay constant and be active and diligent in your vocation while also letting go? How do we surrender to the magic but keep working to be the best that you can be at your mission? Well, that sounds like the whole show that we're going to those are good questions.
This is actually
Betsy,
perfect.
good questions. Yeah. I think that's where you keep the goal in mind, like for the school, it's about that collaboration and always trying to bring things, bring new things in and listening to what we're being suggested, right? So this new class that we're talking about was, it came in as a download to Jen the other day. And so we were playing with that idea and working on it, and we're working through it. But that's how you, like, if you keep your mission in mind in terms of what that overall goal is, then it's okay if like the to-do list to get it going varies, right? So when you're doing a planning process, I know for business planning, for instance, right, you have your mission statement, you have your vision statement, and then you start working on your strategic goals, and then those go down into project planning, and you end up with a to-do list right in front of you after that. So somewhere in there is where you start to tap into the flow of things. So the top two are really like the goals of vision and mission, and like your main goals are kind of where you sort of stay focused in terms of how to stay on track and work on the, being the best that you can be, or work on building the business, or those kinds of things, staying in that mindset. But then as you go down to the day-to-day planning of it, staying in flow of, okay, how does this feel today? Does this feel good? Is this the right way to go? Do we want to do that direction? I mean, you guys know that I change, things that I'm doing all the time. And it's because I keep checking in to make sure it's still relevant. Or is this still relevant? Does this still feel good? Is this what we should be doing? And I think that's kind of how you sort of stay on mission, because you've got the big goal in mind, but you're also sort of going with the flow in what feels right for that day. And sometimes there's days when, for myself anyway, it's like I have set out in my head that I want to get this done and this done and this done, and somehow that doesn't feel right today. It doesn't mean that it's wrong entirely, but today may not be the right day. And sometimes it has to do with the astrology. Sometimes it has to do with my own energy that I'm, and I need to clear my own energy. Maybe it's a self-care day instead. And so being gentle with yourself and showing that caring compassion, right, to self, is like, that's how you start to be flexible, go with the flow, right? But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do what needs to happen to get those things done. It's just, it may be a different day because it doesn't feel quite right. So does that make sense, Betsy? I think that's kind of how I would explain it, at least in terms of my process for the school. I mean, I guess that's a good example. It would be the same for anything, right? Any kind of business, and the goals could be your personal goals. So if you're looking at your personal goals, fitness goals or something, for instance, you brought up the gym. Yeah. What about if you have this fitness goal in mind that you want to do, you want to be, I don't know, able to run a marathon in 6 months. Okay. So you set that goal for yourself, but then, today you're feeling very tired. And if you do run today, it's not going to be okay. And you're feeling into your body, it's not going to be okay. So, you need to sort of adjust your schedule because of that. So it's the same kind of thing, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, in Zen, there's something called Wu Wei, which is what you kind of described, going with the flow. Wu is know, and Wei, I think, is doing. So it sounds like do nothing, but what it means, don't force. Okay. Right. As long as you have your vision in mind. See what happens. I'll tell you based on what I see in people. When I look at people, there's this energy field around us, and we have things stuck in there. So knowing yourself is knowing what's stuck in that field. Mm-hmm. What should be there, what shouldn't be there. There's certain things that shouldn't be there, and they're all there. So we try to clear them as we start to know ourselves. and know ourselves by realizing our behavior, our reactions. So once you start looking into that, you start to clear your aura. You start to clear everything around you. So what's left in there is an empty space, and that empty space is actually filled with whatever we want to achieve or what our heart desire. Our heart, not our mind, because our mind goes everywhere. Our mind goes into a bank account that feeds the rent, what do you call it, the schooling, and so on and so forth with kids, and then we start looking into 50 years from now, how am I going to retire and all of that, and then you lose sight of everything. So bring it down to what your heart desires, not what your mind desires,
Yeah.
and from that desire you create the vision. And let's just focus on the school, because that's what we're talking about. So
Mhm.
we put the school in our field, in our energy field. So the school is there, just like a camera. You're looking everywhere, and anything that is relating to the school will just pop.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's nice. A blackboard. Let me get this blackboard. And then without realizing, you have all the tools to start building. Yeah, I know you put a 1 year plan, a 5 year plan, and whatever plans, exit strategies, and all of that when you come to do business stuff, but really not all of them are relevant at the beginning.
Mhm.
What's relevant is the focus.
Yeah.
Once your focus and that path is created, you're up and running. And most of us, what happens is that we look on social media and we see Oprah and we see all these people that are all of a sudden they made it, and oh yeah, it's an overnight success, but it's
Yeah.
not.
No.
It never is. It
No.
never is. You cannot program yourself. You can't clear your energy field unless you work on it, and that requires time. The
Yeah.
more you push, the harder it gets. The less you push, the easier, and it moves. It moves easier, and then you flow with it. It's just like a simple path that you just, the lazy river. It's almost like that. You just sit on your whatever it is, that little tire thing, and it just takes you to the end. You do nothing. You don't have to
Yeah.
paddle. You don't have to do anything, because you're on the right path. I
Yeah.
hope I explained it well.
Yeah, and that speaks to the resistance piece, right? So when we're not on the right path, we're going to hit resistance, and it's going to be more challenging, right? And so the more you can do your own healing work and clear your field, like you're talking, and know yourself and know what works for you, and start to feel into that passion that you have, because following the passion is key. You have to love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, do something different, right? And I'm not telling everybody to go and quit your jobs. What I'm saying is that you can do other things in the other parts of your life to add passion. Okay. So that's, and if you follow the passion, the resistance is less and less.
Absolutely. One Facebook user is saying it never gets easier. Actually, it never gets. It gets always easier.
Mhm.
To me, at least from what I see, is that if you're not on an easy path, you're paddling against the current.
That's right.
So maybe we shouldn't go there that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Usually if there's resistance, there's a need to change. So
Yeah.
if it's not getting easier, there may be a need to change something in your life, if
Yes,
that's the case, right?
that's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. Clear something. Understand yourself.
Yeah.
Understanding yourself is the biggest asset that you give yourself.
Yeah.
Is the
It
biggest,
is.
because once you understand who you are and what's blocking you from moving forward, and there are usually little programs that are sitting in the back of your head that you're not aware of. Once you get to that point, you just untangle the resistance everywhere. You're on your merry way to success. And success doesn't mean that you're going to be rich and famous. Success means you follow your heart and you're able to achieve what you're looking to achieve.
Yeah.
And then that's a key. That is an absolute key.
And that's an important thing, for us to talk about too, is that what does success mean for you? Because success is not the same for everybody.
Yeah.
It's very different for everybody. And, people really equate success with lots of money and fame, but not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants fame. There's a part of people that is, there's a fear around being famous. There's a lot that comes with that. With great power, which is what people equate to fame, comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
And so there is a responsibility to do the best you can do in that position. So not everybody wants that responsibility. And that's okay. Their success might be to live a nice, stable, happy life, with love in it. That might be their sign of success. Another person might be really tied to the material things and wants to make X number of dollars a year. Maybe that's their success. Everybody is different. Absolutely. In what they want.
And see what goes well with you, what sits well with you, because what sits well with you might not sit well with me.
Right.
And we're different, and we shouldn't be comparing.
That's right. And it's okay to be different.
Oh,
that we're all unique.
Bloody hell, it took a long time to understand this thing.
Yes. It's key, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we understand that we're all unique, and that judging each other against each other's norms or each other's ethics or each other's shoulds, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't work. So checking in is the surrender. That's what you're asking, Betsy. Okay. It's not so much checking in, it's about allowing yourself to go with that. So, checking in is part of the surrender. I wouldn't say it is the surrender. I could check in and they could tell me to go left, and I'm like, nope, I'm going right. And then that's not surrendering, right? So the surrendering is checking in and doing what you're being guided to do. So there's two parts to that. That's what I would say. Yeah.
If it doesn't feel good, just make sure that your heart follows, not your mind. Mm-hmm. Because we tend to go as like, nah, I'm going there anyways.
Yeah.
And then you hit a wall.
Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I don't think I should do that. Okay. And then you hit that resistance that we were talking about. We all do it, right? This is not like, Ramsey and I are not sitting up here saying, oh yeah, we always follow our guidance and we're always, no. We're human. We're learning too. We still do stuff. And we're like, oh, shouldn't have done that. You did know better. You did listen. You did. Yeah. It's an ongoing process, and we are all a work in progress. Each and every one of us here. We are a work in progress.
Yeah.
And that's where the caring, compassion, and collaboration comes in. It is a pleasant experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, it's like you're molding a new you.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the old you, which there's nothing wrong with it, has been molded in such a way based on your upbringing, your society, the group that you relate to, your friends, and so on. As you age, as growing up,
we're not aging.
No, we're never aging. As you grow up, you get to a point that it just doesn't fit with you. It just doesn't resonate anymore. And things are not moving well the way you want them.
Yeah.
That's when you start to remold yourself into, well, actually, because you're going against the grain right now. You're going against your upbringing. You're going against your society, your understanding of life itself and everything else. So you're moving away from that to create something that flows with you. Mm-hmm. See, you're not going to shed everything. You're not going to remove everything, but you're going to remove the things that don't work anymore.
Yeah.
And if you see a repetitive action reaction and it doesn't feel good with you, then let it go.
Yeah.
I know it sounds easy. It is hard, but yet it's easy.
It's simple, but not
Yeah.
necessarily easy, depending on the person, right? So it's simple in that the concept is simple, but to do it takes work. And that is what we call that healing journey, right?
Yeah.
We realize as we go through the healing journey, we realize, you know what, that behavior is not working so well anymore. It might be time to look at that. Why do I do that? Why have I been doing that all my life? And every time I do it, it doesn't work. So why am I doing that? You know, question yourself, question what you're doing. And that's not about self-judgment. It's about observation.
Yes. And you use the word judgment, which is a good point. I wanted to bring it up and I forgot about it. All negative vibrational words, we should start to look at them in a different lens.
Mhm.
Okay. Judgment is one of the biggest one, and we're never good enough for anything that we do. And whatever we do is not up to a certain par or a standard that we have created in our mind on how others perceive it.
Mhm.
And that itself is a blockage.
It is. And
It's
who decides those standards?
us.
Right. Because 9 times out of 10, if you think there's a certain standard around something and you actually have a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody, that's not their standard. They often they don't even care, you know, but we have all of this angst built up about how we need to act to be accepted, to be loved. You know, all of those things come in. None of that matters. We are loved, right? We are loved.
And if you look at most, I'm going to use the term successful people, are the ones that really don't care about anybody. Not
Yeah.
in the matter of not caring about people in general, they do not care about what people say about them.
Right.
All
There's
right?
there's a good quote for that.
Yeah.
What that person thinks about me is none of my business.
Absolutely.
Because it's all tied up in their own programming, their own where they brought that stuff forward. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. I remember something. I'm gonna note it down.
So yeah, I think that, you know, you're right. People have to get over that, and it's not easy to get over. I mean, we're so programmed with, you know, right from a very early age. No, that's right. This is wrong. So don't do the wrong things.
Yeah.
Because they come with consequences. You know, and it's not that we can go through life ignoring consequences. I mean, there are consequences to things, right? So making decisions out of love for self and others is a huge piece. If we're not doing that, then there's going to be negative consequences, right? I mean, you look at criminals and all of that kind of stuff. They make poor choices, but it's usually based on this, not on this. Or it's based on fear. And those choices aren't going to be out of love for self or others necessarily. Yeah. So if you're tapping into your heart to make choices out of love for self and others, and it doesn't agree with somebody else's, that's okay. As long as it's out of love and you're not going to hurt anybody else in doing it. Right. So I think that's a big piece. And it's not an easy one to get past. It's really not. I mean, that's one of those big things, and it depends on who you are, right? There's some people that it's harder than others, of course, because of history, because of background, because of who you are. We're all different personality types. Certainly doing the work that we're doing, we had to work through getting past what people thought or what people think of us, because, you know, let's face it, the woohoo stuff is woohoo stuff, and it's not always mainstream, we'll say, right? People don't understand it. And when people don't understand it, they go into fear about it. So we have a question here. What if following your heart goes against traditional mothering and you get judgments from the person who helped me be successful?
I'm guessing.
So if it's going against traditional mothering, is it loving your child? Is it loving the family members and showing respect? Like those are the things that come to mind with that. So traditional mothering is anything that's traditional is steeped with that should word, the expectation, right? It doesn't have to be traditional for it to be loving, respectful, and in flow. And really, what do kids want? If we're talking about mothering in particular, what do kids want? What do they need? They need mothering. They need love. Mothering can be male or female, right? It's that nurturing female energy. They need love. You know, you look around the world and it's not about the money. It's not about all of that stuff. It's about love.
Yeah. No. It is perceived as is, as I will be away sometimes, but I always loving and respectful. Yes.
Yeah.
You did answer it. The answer is still the same. It's a matter of judging yourself against a certain tradition or par. I'm not up to par in terms you're talking about mothering, like my mother, for example, or my grandmother. But times have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandmother, all she did was sit at home, make breads from scratch, and make food from scratch, and that was the norm for everybody. And as generations started to move away from that, our mothering has changed also.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that whatever the grandmother did or the great grandmother did and what we're doing today are totally off.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it within the environment that we are in and based on the need and expectation of what we like. See, in the old days, they had no choice. Yeah. Your choice is to get married at the age of 15 and have 10 children and raise them, and that's the end of it. From a mother's perspective, and I'll look at my grandmother, for example, and that's what she did.
Mm-hmm.
But as you go down the generation, that expectation is not there. You know?
No, the expectations change.
Yes, right? My daughter is 23. She's not married. Does that mean that she's not a good woman? Or compared to my grandmother or great grandmother who was married at 14, 15? No, it's just a totally different time. And we should move, again, I'm bringing the word should, but we should be moving away from those expectations or those, if you want to put it, the heavyweight requirements that we have to be identical to an old thing, an old tradition, because there's so many different times, and we should move with the time.
Yeah. And when we talk about some of that stuff, it's really, there's a lot about control in that. It was about the older generations. There was a lot of fear, a lot of control that had to happen, right? Because they were fearful of what happens if all of a sudden people start thinking for themselves, right? And then they don't want to stay home and have babies. Well, that's already happened. So we don't have to deal with that as a control anymore because things are different now, like you were saying.
Yeah. Things have changed, and if it feels right for you, it is the right action.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere that follow your heart. Let me read it again. Mother, you get judgment from person who help us succeed. Yeah. Again, there's a big, massive judgment in there, and judgment means absolutely nothing. Nothing. If you allow that negative judgment to flow through you, then the judgment means nothing.
Judgment creates separation.
That too.
And, we are all one. We're all connected. And the more we judge, we create a separation, a wall. between us and a person or a group or whatever the case may be, right? We put up walls.
Yes, that brings me to actually another point over here, which is the art of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we think we communicate on a daily basis and we talk to people and people understand us, but the reality is people don't understand us. People understand us from their point of view of the topic,
Yeah.
not what we're communicating to them. So there's always going to be judgments and separation when you're dealing with issues like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we take that situation and reframe it in a way where you bring your point of view to the table in a proper manner, well presented, and the words well thought of. Because if you, okay, I'm jumping, but
It's okay.
if you're typing an email, you realize after you type it, you don't send it. You reread it 3-4 times because most of what you thought that came down on a piece of paper is not there.
Yeah.
You miss a lot of words. You miss the essence of certain things sometimes because it sounds really good in my head, so I'm typing it and it's actually really horrible, or it's off topic.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, the way we type is the way we speak, the way we communicate. So if we pull back and reformulate the communication, we can heal that separation between the old tradition and the new tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing to the table your point of view of it all. Yes, for example, I found a new job. My job takes me everywhere. I had to spend like three weeks in the UK in the month of December. Of course, I get judged by others. It's like, oh, you're not here for me. But if I can word it properly and come and bring it up to the table, then there's this communication, and then it eases the bridge between two people.
Mm-hmm. It's
Rather
about
than-
finding the shared understanding in the
Yes.
communication, right?
Yeah.
And when you're talking about traditional versus the more modern flair, find the common denominator. There's always a common denominator. And the common denominator in that is love for the child.
Yes.
How you get there can vary, and it's okay. But if you agree that it's out of love for the child and you want to protect the child and you both have that shared understanding going forward, and this could be anything, right? There's a common element in 99% of the conversations. There's a common element. It's to find that common element, right? And usually you can find it if you look at it with love, right?
100%. Love and compassion heals
Yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question. Does ego create separation through judgment?
It's one aspect of it, is what I would say about that. That's kind of your baby, the ego piece.
I try to heal my ego.
It's his baby because he's a specialist in it. That's why I say that, not because he has an ego. We all have ego, but
I think we did one show to what do you call it? What did we call it?
it was about
That
that.
Yeah. We said that the ego has a bad rep, and we're trying to clear it up. We were trying
That's
to
right.
clear the image of an ego.
Yeah.
Okay, an ego is us. It's all our thoughts, all our beings, all our understanding of the whole world is us. That's our ego. But then what we start doing is that we don't have love for ourselves or missing something. And that's where comparison starts to kick in.
Mhm.
Yes, it's part of the ego, but it's not the ego itself, it's part of the ego. And once we start comparing, then the separation starts to be created. And for me to feel better, I go, oh, well, this, so stop judging her. And then I'll feel better because now I'm elevating myself over somebody else. I'm elevating myself and pushing somebody else down, or just by pushing somebody else, I feel more superior. And that's where it comes in, the ego part. So Once we start realizing that we're going into a negative space of comparing or judging or doing any of these things, let's just go back and see what is the root cause of that.
Yeah.
Why am I jealous of the other person? Because that's where it comes from. I'm jealous of you, so I'm going to judge you so that I can feel better about myself. So
Comes down to fear.
it comes from the fear. A fear of not being seen, a fear of not being heard, a fear of being
Not
inferior
being
to others.
loved. Not being loved.
So the not being loved is the key point of it all. And we try to get our love from an external source, and it never satisfies us. Because once we go internally and we start loving ourselves, which is easy to say, hard to conceptualize. I love myself. Well, I take myself to the gym. I love myself. No, you don't love yourself because you're missing on a fundamental emotional thing inside you, and I'm talking out of experience from myself, is that you lose that side. You don't see it, and you go, "But oh, I'm doing everything. I'm going out, and I have friends." And no, just pull back, and then you realize you actually are not there. So once you bring yourself back into you, that's where the love for yourself will come in, and everything else falls apart. Just doesn't exist. Your ego, so-called ego, doesn't exist. Because now you're comfortable in your skin. You're comfortable with whatever you're doing, and you're comfortable with the outcome of what you're doing. Have I failed? Many times.
Absolutely.
100 times.
We're meant to.
Yes. Was I ever embarrassed during those times? Yes.
Yeah.
My ego kicked in, and I curled in a corner, and I sat there and exactly.
Yeah.
But then after you do this a couple of times, you realize it's like, actually, people are more compassionate towards you than you are towards yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That kicks in a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And then you start to evaluate all your action and reaction to whatever happened. And that's when you start to reconnect with who you are. And then that's where the love starts to flow internally. And that's when you connect with the whole universe, because we're in a spider web type of universe.
Mm-hmm.
We're all connected. When somebody sneezes on one end, on the other end, somebody feels it. Literally.
It's true. It's a wave of energy.
It happened 2 days ago. I have somebody that came to me and said, "Oh, look, this is my girlfriend, blah blah blah, and I really like her." Whatever. I said, "Okay, show me the picture." I go, and I'm looking at the picture, and I go. So I kind of described the person based on my vision of her, and then all of a sudden something went wrong, and I go, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna cry. There's something that is not good." But then I gave the picture back, the phone back, and because I had meetings during the day, so I ran into my meetings. While I'm in my meeting, like not even 10 minutes later, that person was on the phone, walks into my office, and he goes, and I go, I'm in the meeting. What do you want? So I finished my meeting, walked in there. He goes, "How the hell did you feel that?" I said, "Why? What happened?" He goes, "There was an incident that she encountered at that point in time where she almost started crying and everything turned dark for her. And then you come in and say this." But that's because we're all part of the same fabric.
Mm-hmm.
We're all part of the same fabric. We feel each other. And you see that bond more intense with mothers and their children.
Mm-hmm. Or twins.
Or twins.
Yeah.
Then why aren't we all in the same boat feeling everybody? Because of what we have all around us.
We are. We just aren't aware.
Exactly. But we're buried with a lot of things in our fields that it filters that connection with others.
Mm-hmm.
So once we clear our fields, we know who we are, our ego starts to go down, we understand ourselves, we love ourselves, and then the connection opens up to everything. like the universe is your playground.
Yep.
Oh my God, where did I come up with all this?
It's not you, Han. Sorry, it's spirit. He's channeling again. I'm just saying. So I often will, look at the ego thing as kind of our filters that we look at the world through as well, right? So if you think you've got this belief and this belief and this belief and this belief and this belief, okay, and you're trying to look at a problem through all of that, the more we can pull back those filters or those lenses that we're looking through, it changes how we see the problem. And so our ego is putting all of this stuff in between us and the problem or the solution. And so we can't see it clearly often. So the more we can change the lens that we're looking through, the easier it is to be with the flow, like we were talking about earlier. So, right? I mean, I and I get teased a lot about, looking at life through rose-colored glasses. Well, that's just my lens that I choose to look at it through. And rose-colored glasses is better than dark. So I'm okay with that. So I don't know. That's just one way of looking at it. Who have we got here?
The whole bit of duality, makeup of perceiver and perceived is pure imagination. There is no apart from the mind. Absolutely. On the destruction of the mind, all is destroyed. The mind's activity is the cause of all appearances and all accounts. Yes, yes, yes.
And yes, when Ramsey's looking up to the left, he's channeling. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do you see a name on your end?
I don't know who was saying that. Could you?
We're just getting Facebook user on our end. So.
Yeah. Anyways, you can put your name after. This is awesome. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. And duality doesn't exist. It does not exist. Ram Dass said, and it's funny because that came to mind before we got on the show. And
yeah, I thought it was you. It's Michelle.
But Benny Montgomery has a show every Wednesday, astrology, and Tanis is on the show. She mentioned it earlier, and I'm on this show in 2 weeks' time. So please support me and Michelle and Tanis, and attend their show every Wednesday. Actually, it's an awesome show. What was I saying? Yes, Randa said.
Thank you.
It's funny, it came in. And Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
Catherine, thank you for joining us. Randa said, we are all God in drag, which I thought was hilarious.
That's interesting.
But think about it. We are God in a different form, in a different outfit. So we're all connected with that thread. Thanks for the shout out, my brother. So we're all connected with that string. So it's just a different form, that a different what do you call it? It's like a play. We take on a different character, and we do this play, and we come back in a different character, and we do a different play, and that's what we're doing. We're God in drag.
We're playing our role here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we all have that divine spark or that God spark within us, and that's another way of looking at it, is that we have that divine spark within us, and that's how we're all connected, because that divine energy is connected to the all.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I like your God and drag thing. That's funny.
I know. The first time I heard it, I go, "What is he talking about?"
Our meat suits are our drag outfits, right? These bodies we're in.
But
maybe that's why I like dressing up so much. Having been in theater, guys, it's comes naturally for me.
I'm gonna get embarrassed if I wear something like that. But again, who's judging me other than myself?
Well, I'll have to tell you my tutu story at some point if I haven't already. Yeah, tutu story. First time I was in a theater production, I had to wear a tutu on stage, and I put it on and burst into tears. And I had to move past that. It was a whole thing about self-acceptance and moving into accepting that that was just a role I was playing, which leads to what you were saying. It's just part of the role was wearing that tutu. So yeah, it's accepting that that's really where we're at. We're just playing a role. And a lot of people feel our whole lives are like that. We're really here to play a role, and we've made soul contracts, which could be like your acting contract, right? And you've got a soul contract to do this with this person. So we've contracted to play out this scene, right? So you're contracted to play out the scene of marriage with your spouse. You're contracted to play a scene as parent or as sister or daughter or whatever the case may be. We have a contract to play a scene like that, right?
Yeah.
Soul contracts. Okay. So we have a question about soul contracts. So soul contracts, we have a soul family, which is like a whole group of souls. Like if you think about souls as being like energetic beings, right? Little energetic beings. And those souls, before we come down, you're asking if we can exit it. Okay, well, let me do the explanation first, and then I'll get to that. So before we come down, we have our soul family, and we're like, okay, so what role do I need to play if we're talking about it in terms of roles? So I need to learn this, and this to understand what it's like to be human. And so we say, okay, so you're going to be my husband, you're going to be my mom, you're going to be my, we're going to meet when we're 16 and learn about new love. We're going to meet when we're 4 and learn about sharing. We're going to meet when we're 80 and learn about whatever, going through death as a friend, or, there's all sorts of different things that we need to learn. And so all of our lives, we come down and we have this huge checklist and we check off everything, all those roles that we've played. And so the soul contracts are basically that. We make a contract, it's like a verbal contract or whatever, with a soulmate or a soul family member to play a role. And once we've learned the lessons of that, then we can move forward.
That's the key.
Right?
The key, yes.
So there is your reasoning there. Can we exit it?
Yes.
Have you learned the lesson?
Yes.
That you were meant to learn? Ultimately, we have free will. So we can exit soul contracts whenever we like. If we haven't learned the lesson, we may have to contract that again next time. That's kind of what happens, right? So we have free will. That is a big thing for us. It's prime directive. Free will to come down and make choices and create the life that we want to create here. Mm-hmm. But in doing that, are we going to learn all the lessons that we hope to learn? Our soul put us in this position for a reason. Our soul puts us in a position to learn. For instance, we come in. This is a tough one to swallow, so I'm going to put it out there. We contract to have alcoholic parents because we need to learn what it's like to be in a family with that kind of behavior. So we actually contract to do that. That's a hard one for people to swallow, especially when there's like abuse and all of that stuff involved. It's not comfortable for us to look at, but when we look at it just as us being there to learn a lesson, yes. And that it's not punitive. That's the other thing that's come up as a theme in the last couple of weeks when I've been talking to people. So justice in spirituality or in spiritual outlook, justice is not about punishment. It's about learning, right? You put your hand on the stove and you burn your finger, you've learned. You're not going to go and hold it there longer to punish yourself for doing it or put yourself in your room for time out because you did it. You've already learned because you've been hurt. And that's the learning. So when you come at things from that direction, punishment is like, it should be about learning, not about punitive when you do something. So we have another couple comments here. So contracts follow you in your next life. They don't need to follow you. It depends on whether you learn the lesson or not in this life. So not always. Some soul contracts end in time. Yep. For instance, if the sun, the father, moon, mother, or sister Mercury goes into debilitation in the dharmic cycle, by marriage, Saturn return, or nodal return, there can be a release after learning the lesson. Yeah. Yeah. So it does come down to the lesson. If you've learned the lesson,
Yeah.
Or you've paid off the karma. If you're looking at it from dharma karma, if you've paid off whatever karma it was, and that can be seen as a bit punitive, but it's in the learning aspect. Sometimes we need to repeat things to learn them, and so it is still about learning when you look at the karma thing.
Hi, Rachel. Rachel sent us a heart.
Hi.
Thank you. And back to soul contracts.
Yes.
Soul contracts are not like what we think in terms of contractual obligations that we have on Earth.
Right.
You put a contract, and then if you're going to break it, you're going to go to courts and so on and so forth. It's less rigid than that.
Yeah.
Because you can move away from any contract that you want at any point in time. Like you mentioned, you have a free will.
That's right.
A contract is there to awaken you from a certain level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Is to bring you up one more level. Once you achieve that awakening process, once you overcome your what do you call it, obstacles, then you're free.
Mhm.
It's not going to repeat again. That's what we were talking about at the beginning, is that in your field, there's a lot of things that are flowing around. Once you start clearing those things, your path changes. And when your path changes, your friends fall off. It's not like you don't want to be friends with them. They just fall off. Their time has expired on your path. So they just fall off, and they continue their life beautifully. There's nothing wrong with that. You might see them in the future. You might see them at events. It doesn't make it wrong, or you're gonna shy away from that. No, they're still your friends, but they fall off on their own. They just continue on a
we have natural attrition.
exactly. So it's not. I just wanted to clarify that it's not really a contract, a hard written contract, legally binding, and you
Right.
cannot move away from that.
That's right. Yeah. And she's asking, do you have to show that you learned it, or is it just within? It's just within.
No, come on, you got a certificate for that.
It would be nice, because sometimes we don't know, when
Yes.
we've learned it. But it's about listening to the body, and is this time? Is it time? Have I learned my lesson? Is it time? That kind of thing. And it's not written in stone, like Ramsey was saying. It is a fluid process.
Absolutely. It's fluid. And how would you know that you learned your lesson? It doesn't repeat itself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It just ends. And people who actually went through Dark Night of the Souls or whatever it is and had a hard time, they start to realize that there's certain parts of their life that was a stepping stone to get them somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah.
I lived through 10 years of war, bloody war. I feel with people who go through that. But when I look back at it, I go, oh my God, like this had helped me over here. This had helped me over here. This had helped me over here. Was it hard? It was miserable. Was it painful? You can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But have I learned from it? Yes. Will it repeat itself? No, because I'm here. I left. It gave me an opportunity to leave. It gave me an opportunity to come and connect with different soul families. And doesn't mean that I don't like that soul family that I had over there, but it's just we grew out of the experience, and now I have a new soul family to deal with, to grow with, to help. And that's where everybody comes into my circle at this point in time in my life. Hope this was clear and it wasn't too complicated, because it's a deep subject, and I know sometimes it's hard to conceptualize.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like accounting 1 + 1 = 2. It's more fluid and intertwined and kind of
It is.
yeah.
Yeah. And, just because we're expressing a view on here, that we just try to help people make sense of it all. It doesn't mean that's the only way to look at things either. Everybody has their way of seeing it. Just like if you're trying to explain or you're trying to teach something, some students will learn it this way, some students will learn it this way, like even with math. Some like the new math, some like the old way of doing the math. It's still going to get you to the same response. You're still having the same result. It's just how you get there. And that's the other thing to be really conscious of. Just because we say this is what our beliefs are, or our explanation of, doesn't make everybody else wrong, right?
No.
When we're talking about judgment, we're not judging any other views. This is just kind of how we see it. That's why we get on and chat. I don't know why I felt the need to say that, but I did. So,
which is good. It's like some people memorize the multiplication tables and they can pull numbers out of their head. I will show you. Yeah, pull numbers out of their head quickly. 9 plus 10 is 90. Or some people will come and pick up their phone and Google what's 9 plus 10, and they get the same answer, but it's a different way of getting it. So yes, it's a good one. I mean, show you that you no, you mean life shows you that you have a budget. Yes, life usually shows you
yeah, it does.
with outcomes.
Yeah. And if we're not following, we're going to get kicked.
Yes.
Because they push you a little bit to make sure that you're on the path, right? The one that you're supposed to be on. Yes. Not in a bad way. It's a nudge. It's a, hey, what are you doing? You're not on your path. Do that. Yeah.
That's why sometimes we lose our way by substance abuse. Mm-hmm. Because we kind of like disconnect from everything, from the whole universe that is around us, from us, ourselves, and we lose our way completely. So, because you mentioned substance for something. So that actually connects you. It just blocks you at the heart chakra, and you're not connected with your true self. So you're not connected with the collective. And then you're this little petty little person that is sitting in a cold, dark place, and nobody cares about me. And it goes into that part, hitting the escape hatch button. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hit the escape hatch button. Yeah, that's our free will.
Yes. And I find the escape hatch button is when you just take yourself out of everything and sit in silence. Mm-hmm. Take care of yourself. Go into a retreat all by yourself. I want to say a retreat. It doesn't have to be an elaborate thing, but go into the woods. That will be your own retreat. Or go to a spa if you like that, and that will be your own retreat. But once you disconnect, you find yourself again. Mm-hmm. And you solidify that connection to move you forward in life.
Very true.
That was just very short, and it was packed. It was packed.
It was.
I can't believe it's already an hour. I could talk for another 2 days.
I think we might have to eat and sleep in there. I'm just saying, but yes, we probably could. Unplug to plug in. Very good. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Unplug to plug in.
So all these tips and tools and that we talked about and how to find ourselves and connect with the universe as a whole, it creates opportunity for us. And these opportunities are available to us, like miracles. Miracles are not something that comes from the from the angels or the gods or wherever it is. Miracles are when your eyes just open up to something that is in front of you. Because it's always been in front of you, but you're not connected to yourself to see it. So it's always in front of you. And once you see it, it's like, oh my God, it's a miracle. But miracles happen 24 hours, 365 days a year. It's there everywhere. Just connect and open up, and you'll see miracles happening on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And life is full of magic.
Always.
Look for the magic.
Yes. You don't need a wand, but a wand might help sometimes. Like
But it's fun.
Tinkerbell.
It's fun to have a wand.
Oh yeah, like Tinkerbell. Ting ting ting. But you
I
don't
have a
need
few
wand.
around here, actually. Come to think of it. I have my other ones too, but those are the ones that are handy.
It has all
Healing
of them.
wands.
Oh,
It would be.
so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Thank you. And we
Come
thought
back
we
in
were-
2 weeks. We'll be doing it
Yeah.
again in 2 weeks. Yeah.
So, Tanis, you have a last word to say before we log off?
Just a recap of the themes, the 3 C's for this year, themes for this year from the guides: caring, collaboration, and compassion for self as well as others.
Yeah.
Lots of self-care, please. We're going through a bit of a roller coaster with energy, so just make sure you're caring for yourself and others. Sending you lots of love.
Thank you. So be kind to yourself, connect with yourself, love yourself. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you all, and have an awesome evening. Thank you.
Lots of love, everyone.
Yeah. I have still a hard time coming up with this, but
You're doing way better.
all right. Wonderful show. Thank you so much.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Good night.